What's up? What's up, good folks? Welcome back in for episode number 3, or Love for Black Barber History. Let me say that one more time. For Love for Black Barber History. I'm yours truly, Nick D, here in the place to be, Nspired Cutz, and we are very happy to present, to share, and to educate you on some fun facts dealing with the culture and the history of black barbering. Today is another extra special guest that I'm going to speak on briefly, just to show you all that there is some rich culture and history within this barber business and this barber culture. He is none other than the former barber of Martin Luther King Jr., Nelson Malden. That's correct. I said it. This is Martin Luther King Jr.'s, Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s former barber, Mr. Nelson Malden. And indeed, he is, there's so much history out there dealing with this man that it is incredibly important for us to realize how pivotal he was in history throughout the South and for the generations that came after him. The first time that I read about him, as you know, many of you, we do Love for Black History just about every year. And this year I decided to switch it up because usually every day there was something or someone different when we expressed and talked about different ones, and there was a wonderful conversation, if you will, that dealt with Dr. King. And the writer of this was Andrew J. Young, Montgomery Advertiser. And it demonstrated and talked about some unbelievable things, man. See, Nelson Malden was 21 years old when Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s blue Pontiac rolled up in front of College Hill Barbershop. It was 1954, and the segregated Montgomery was on the verge of strife and change. Malden was on his way to class. A short-haired man, spotting a well-trimmed mustache, stepped up from the car. Malden decided he had time for one more quick cut. Mr. Malden said in this, "I can look at the head and tell how long it was going to take." And from a barber's perspective, I can relate to that, said Malden, who had been a barber since 1952. This little man got out, and I saw at his head, his hair had already been cut pretty short. He had no beard. He had a little mustache. I needed the money, every penny I can make. I tried to do it. I said, "Oh, heck, I can knock him out in 15 minutes, not knowing at the moment I was about to give the first Montgomery haircut to one of the most historical figures of all time." Mr. Malden asked, "What's your name?" "Martin Luther King." "Where are you from?" "Atlanta." "What are you doing in town?" "I'm here to preach my crowd sermon at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church." "Oh, that's my church. Good to meet you." Malden finished cutting King's hair and handed him the mirror. King told him his haircut was pretty good. When you tell a barber pretty good, that's kind of an insult, Malden said. 2 weeks later, King came back in the shop. Malden was busy. The two other barbers were vacant. King said he waited because he wanted Malden. Mr. Nelson Malden, that is. "That must have been a pretty good cut." "You're all right." Barbershops have long been hubs of information and barometers of community interest. College Hill Barbershop was no different. If I can just show you a couple pictures real quick. This was the shop, Malden Brothers Barbershop, that Mr. Nelson Malden cut at. And these are some of his images of some different ones over the years that he's cut. You talking about a historical figure and a phenomenon, a man that was exceptional. I tell you what, I am privileged to discuss and talk about the former barber of Dr. Martin Luther King. Not only did he make an impression, but he had an impact. So barbers out there, the time that someone comes to you and they say pretty good, hey, pretty good to many people must mean excellent, especially coming from Dr. Martin Luther King. Good people, I hope that you learned something today. Go ahead and look a little deeper to discover a lot of other historical things that this great man did in his career and in his life. And one last nugget I can say is Malden, also a student of Alabama State College, was already cutting hair for the biggest players in the budding civil rights scene, Reverend A.W. Wilson, Joanne Robinson, Dr. Lawrence Reddick, and every pastor in the city. Malden had no idea that new 25-year-old preacher would eventually lead all of them. Isn't that amazing? When our relationship started, he said, I thought I was hot stuff, and I looked down on him like a preacher, like a little preacher. And I think he picked up my state of behavior. And he said that with a laugh. This is historic and phenomenal. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Nelson Malden. Tune in again for another fun fact session of love for Black Barber history. We'll see you again tomorrow. Peace.